Hello there folks, I'm Dan Brown from Sort of Interesting. I've spent most of my adult life living on canal boats. Haven't lived on a boat for about a year at this point, but I will be getting another one. And here are a few of the ways that narrowboat life has ruined me. The first and the biggest thing is sleep. Goodness me, I have been tremendously lucky to spend a lot of my life moored up in the middle of nowhere in some of the most peaceful places I've ever been. And that means, my goodness, a restful night's sleep is all but guaranteed in a lot of cases. And I find now I am hyper fixated on any little noises that I hear at night, and I just can't get to sleep. And say if I'm in a house and I can hear the quiet sound of someone snoring in another room, I'll lie in bed furious with myself, going, just ignore it, go to sleep. And it's unbelievable, but compared to the tremendously silent environments I've been lucky to drift off to sleep in, I find even the slightest noise now absolutely throws me off and can have me up for hours fuming with myself. And a great example of a place by Colmere is what you're seeing on screen now, this beautiful autumnal footage. But imagine mooring up here, not only are you in the middle of a beautiful rural area, but you've got all the overhanging trees and a bit of a wooded area right next to the canal to help drown out even any of the faint distant road sounds that you might be hearing. Tremendous place, and a fantastic night's sleep or two I've had there too. The second biggest thing, which isn't really serious, but it's probably the biggest day-to-day annoyance that I have, is that because of being on a very small boat and then a slightly bigger boat, I cannot stand clutter. I've always been one for minimalism anyway, but once you're living in a very small environment where you're effectively in a corridor, so it's incredibly easy as you're walking up and down the boat to clip things that are on shelves or on tables, or I don't know, knock a plate or a glass off the top of a kitchen worktop, for argument's sake. I was struggling to think of just everyday items then, you might have gathered. But because of that, I find that now, when I'm just going about my day-to-day life, because I obviously can't control the clutter-free environment like you can on a tiny boat, that I'm like, just put that to the side, I'll just push that a bit further back from the edge. It's almost like the stereotypical cat thing of anything that's on a surface a cat will knock over. I'm the opposite of, I want it carefully pushed out of harm's way. Another big thing to me, on my first boat for about 5 years, and then for the start of my second boat life, I didn't have a car, and everything I did, all of my travel, was by boot, bike, boat or bus. And then of course lifts from friends and family when it was extreme need for coal and firewood and things like that. There's no way I was carrying that on my backpack, on my bike. Because of that, I definitely feel now, even though I'm only 36, my knees are not great. I'll say that much. I still do some good mountain walking, but I have to wear knee braces now. And I put that solely down to during my mid-20s on that first boat, doing this, and this is literally the truth, thousands of miles of cycling and walking every year. And it was awesome at the time, and I absolutely loved it, and I got to see some amazing sights throughout the different seasons, travelling through, again, these beautiful rural environments, and they say by bike and by boot and by boat. What fantastic modes of transport to be in these lovely middle of nowhere places. But it's definitely taken its toll, and that's probably going to be the most serious legacy I have, no pun intended when I say legacy, Lego pain more like. Probably going forwards, if this is how they feel now, I've got to be very careful and very sensible about my knees and protect them and not do too much pointless walking and try and make the best use of every step I take, really. So yeah, that's definitely something. My extremely active lifestyle that I used to base everything around, the absolute core of my existence on a boat and even off a boat. Obviously, there's only so much punishment that you can put your body through. That leads us nicely into the topic of boredom, because this is another thing that I feel that I've always suffered with, and the boat and everything has only made it 10 times worse. Now, but when I was on my first boat in particular, the mobile internet coverage was rubbish. So I missed the streaming revolution of Netflix and things like that becoming big. And I obviously didn't have that everyday distraction and interaction with the internet like most people did for about 5 years or so. However, because of something like the travelling and going out to the shops would potentially be a few miles round trip, everything took a lot more time. And of course, I was moored up in these beautiful places, so multiple times a day I'd be going out for these little walks and wanderings just up and down here on the towpath. Oh, where does that path lead across the fields? Let's find out. I'd be doing stuff very, very often and going out multiple times a day, almost every day for years on end, basically. And so because of that, I feel that on dry land, I've got a lot of free time in comparison to back then on the boats. And of course, on the boat, as well as having these wonderful places, you were moving around. So you might have, say, a winter time where you're in this particular area or moored up in a marina, but then in 3 months' time, you're miles from there, you don't see any of those same tracks or fields or towpath, and you're exploring and enjoying a completely different area and discovering a random refurbished windmill that somebody now lives in, for example. If anybody knows that, on the Llangollen Canal. Just a random reference there for basically nobody. Okay, I'll save the weirdest and worst one for last. First, I want to make sure that I get my plugs in. If you want to find out more about my boat life, then check out my short books that I wrote. They're available on the Kindle or as a paperback collection, links in the description. Check out the Patreon, Sort of Interesting, if you want to help me out or see a little bit more of the random out and about stuff that I do and bonus videos and podcast episodes. And yeah, just check the links in the description. The final thing, and this is terrible, sickness. Now, I've always been a bit feeble when it comes to being sick. However, since being on boats and being sick and having that finite toilet space to fill up, I told you it was unpleasant, didn't I? I've never felt worse about being ill, and just the thought of it and waking up feeling a bit queasy and then thinking, oh, if I'm not going to have to stick my head over that horrible little toilet and get too close for comfort. And also, of course, as well as that and the limited storage for that sort of stuff, you're on a boat, and when I was sick on a boat in the summertime and there was all the passing traffic, so you were not only feeling ill, but the boat was rocking quite a lot because of all the holiday traffic around. Some of the worst experiences of my life, I would say. So yeah, I'd say I've definitely gained a bit more of an irrational fear of sickness. Not that I suppose many people want to be or like to be feeling that way. Anyway, I'm just going to draw this to a close, I think, because I think I've said too much. Until the next time, links in the description. Have a fantastic day, keep it interesting, keep it boat worthy, and of course, my friends, farewell.